This recording was originally a live conversation which took place at Startup Nights back in November 2022.
The more you go into the problem of animal protein or the effect it has on this planet, the more you feel the need that you need to find a solution for this. And it needs to be plant-based. And I think if you respect cultural habits and how we eat, it needs to respect what we eat.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Pascal, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's so great to meet you here at the Startup Nights in Winterthur.
Thanks, Sylvan. Great to be here.
You are the co-founder of Planted, a startup making healthy plant-based meat alternatives. And before we talk about your company, I actually want to start with your personal background. You studied business administration and technology management at the University of St. Gallen here in Switzerland. And you then went on to work for a lot of food industry companies, specifically Migros companies. So I'm just wondering, what actually drew you to that industry in the first place?
Maybe fate. I'm not sure. What I really wanted to do after my studies was to go into industry, to take products, ABC, apply a process and make something better in the end, right? Yeah. And food is fantastic. Love it. My first job was in a bakery of my great uncle over summer, and always loved food, always loved good food. The whole green mindset, sustainability was deep within me for a very long time. I founded the Green Liberal Party in Lucerne when I was 21, or I co-founded it. And I thought politics would be able to change the world. And I later learned that, yes, it might. It just takes too long. And I think that whole idea of industry, right? Applying processes to goods ABC and making something better out of it, we can now do on an entrepreneurial scale, on an industrial scale, to really make this world a better place and solving the protein issue. So it kind of all comes together with Planted, which is fantastic.
But then, you worked for other companies, right, before you started your own venture.
Yes.
So what went wrong there? Because you first tried to tackle the issue on a political level, then you thought, oh, that takes too long, so I want to go and work in the industry. But then
there was a bit side by side, but yes.
Okay.
I think I always liked working, whether it was for corporates or I worked for a very small private company once in Lucerne. That was never the issue, but sometimes things don't go as fast as you think they should, right? And I think a lot of people feel that way when they work in a corporate job or in an environment where you're not your own boss, and you want to change things, and you might not have the support of the people that let you do that. And then I think the very simple equation is take it, change it, or leave it. And in the end, I decided to leave it, to start this thing together with Lucas, Chris, and Eric, to start Planted. Like I said, I think it's the culmination of everything that went on before.
Right. And where does that entrepreneurial drive come from? Did you also have any role models in the family that inspired you to pursue that path? Or was it really the urge to change the world for the better?
Not sure. We don't have a family business. I mean, grandfather was a farmer. I guess that's somewhat of an entrepreneur, right?
Sure, yeah.
But no, I think the drive for change was my personal driver. But I think within our founding group, you'd have our executive team members now. You have different backgrounds. For me personally, no, it wasn't the need to be an entrepreneur, but the need to drive change. And I think you can do that in a very fast way as an entrepreneur.
Definitely. And so you did, because then in 2019, you co-founded Planted together with Eric, Chris, and Lucas, as you mentioned before. Where did the four of you actually meet? How did that happen, that you started then a company together?
Very different places. Lucas is my cousin, so I met him very early on in life. I was about 3 years old and he was born. And Chris and I went to school together in Cersei, which is a small city in Lucerne. Eric, we met at ETH. He did his PhD together with Lucas. And so I think, a lot of different backgrounds. And Chris went on to study finance in Zurich. I went on to St. Gallen. Lucas, as my cousin, knew him because of family, but I wouldn't have known a PhD in food science on that talented level. For sure, I wouldn't have known that just like that. So I think it was a lot of maybe fate included, or luck, or the right moment for people to come together and say, let's do this. Let's use the technology to really change the way we eat protein.
Can you take us back to these early days? All different backgrounds, even different locations, I assume, across the German-speaking part of Switzerland.
Even the US, right? I mean, yeah.
How did you then end up to really say, hey, this is now the company that we want to build together? How did that happen? Because that wasn't just a thing overnight, I assume.
No, it was in the beginning was a WhatsApp, a question to Lucas if we can build meat from plants in a more natural and tasty and fibrous way than the burgers that I started eating a lot in the US back then. It was the right moment for Lucas to jump and think of, hey, let's write it down. We wrote a 2-pager, and a lot of the things that we wrote on this 2-pager that we wanted to build, we still do. Nice. Yeah. And then there was a lot of background checking, obviously, the market, how big can it get, what's the real issue. And the more and more, that's the crazy thing, right? The more and more you go into the problem of animal protein or the effect it has on this planet, the more you feel the need that you need to find a solution for this. And it needs to be plant-based. And I think if you respect cultural habits and how we eat, it needs to respect what we eat. And that's how we decided to make better meat products.
Maybe you can give a bit more context there. What is currently wrong with the livestock farming, right? Do you have... Yeah, I know there are many multi-dimensions to that question.
If you want to take a look at it on a very technocratic view, you could say, Jesus, these guys really did a lot of things right. Because not giving a damn about environment or animal friendliness or even workers in that industry, they've achieved fantastic production ratios, a super efficient supply chain, almost no taxes, no very low margins for everybody who's involved, right? So they really democratized meat. It wasn't that available 50 years ago. Yeah. So if you really take that look, then fantastic, great job. Everybody has meat now in a very cheap manner, and it works. But the effect on the planet is that we're destroying rainforests, that we're getting food that humans could eat into animal stomachs that need up to 25 times more to convert that into animal protein that we then eat. There is that one graph where it shows the amount of living mass of mammals on this planet. And it's as, livestock, wildlife, and humans. Yeah. And livestock is just huge. It's massive. And it's just food for the last circle. And 50 years ago, it was different. The wildlife circle was the biggest one. Now it's by far the livestock circle. And it just shows, and this is a circle that lives 30 days to a few years. Chicken lives about 30 days, right? Cow, when it gives milk, it lives maybe 2, 3, 4 years until it's a burger. A calf lives 9 months. So, Jesus, it's just, the massive impact it has on this planet. Maybe in greenhouse gas emissions, that's 14.5% of total greenhouse gas emissions are, emitted by the animal livestock industry. And just to compare it, it's about the same as the whole transportation sector combined. And we're talking about electrifying cars, which is about 1 to 2% of greenhouse gas emissions. It's certainly the right step, but are we really doing what we can to stop global warming? Are we stopping that catastrophe? And I think we're hiding in front of our own plates.
No.
because we're so culturally engaged to eating that center of plate kind of piece of meat.
No. It's fascinating what you just shared, because it's very efficient on one hand of the process, right? The whole supply chain, the production process, there is super efficient, but very inefficient when you actually think about how do you get protein inside of us humans to feed us.
Yes.
Then it's
because
a very
all the
inefficient
externalities that cost this planet, they're, well, yeah, we all pay for them.
Yeah, exactly.
with the wastewater, with antibiotics, and whether it's in the wastewater or in free nature or within the meat that we didn't consume. Massive implications on our planet, and that is, the cost is democratized while the meat is just cheaper and cheaper and goes.
Yeah. So now we see it's a big problem that needs to be addressed and solved. And now, of course, you also see, okay, plant-based protein can be a solution to that. How does that actually compare to the animal protein?
Hey, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, you mean? And our products are between 74% less greenhouse gas emissions for the chicken, for example, up to 86 less for the kebab that we're making. But other than, animal proteins doesn't get more efficient. Maybe through breeding super efficient chickens, you might get, a little bit less ratio of plant protein you put into a chicken for it to grow. But with us, we can get a lot better. We can take less processed raw ingredients to structure it into meat, take different technologies, and we will get better and better at this and have less impact on the planet, whereas meat stays an ancient technology that, is by definition not very efficient.
And how does it compare to animal protein on a nutrition level?
Hey, we try to take all the positive aspects of meat and at least copy them. So that means that the energy value, the protein content, little salt content, but then we add positive aspects, just as fiber content. So it's good for your digestion. So by taking all the positives, leaving away the negatives, and adding additional positives like the little or less impact on environment, and better for your body, better for your health, I think it's a great mix to make better than meat alternatives.
Absolutely. And while developing your product, of course, you had a broad choice of different options that you could have used for your plant-based protein. So which proteins do you actually use at Planted?
We decided to go for pea protein, pea fibers, because they're grown locally. They can be grown in Europe. I mean, you can also grow soy in Europe, but it's. I think with soy, it's not the problem of the plant. It's the problem of the perception, the consumer perception. But you want to take as local as possible protein. So I think pea protein gives a fantastic tasting product in our case. So we stuck with that, and it's clean, it's natural. We only use 4 ingredients for our chicken. For the pulled pork that we created, we added a sunflower protein and oat protein to the mix. Nice, because the sunflower protein is taken out of the press cake, basically, when you make sunflower oil. So nice. The stuff that's left behind is very rich in proteins, and it's normally fed to animals that then again use a very bad ratio in creating meat. So we take it directly, that waste, into the human nutrition. Classic circular economy approach. And that cleanliness, or that those very little natural ingredients that make the best product, was always something that we wanted to hold to the higher standards.
Yeah. And you often see, there is, of course, also a huge demand in these products these days, that you have plant-based alternatives. And very often they sound good at the first sight, but you also have a lot of not so healthy or not so good ingredients in there. How can you actually make the same result happen, but actually focus on healthy and on good ingredients?
I think that's a very important point. We often say that other manufacturers per se are not a problem for us, and it's good to have other players out there. What scares me is bad products, because imagine yourself, you might be interested in the category, or your parents or uncles, I don't know, somebody that is interested says, I want to try this, grabs a plant-based sausage right now, chances are really, really low that you go back in that category and buy something because it, frankly, tastes horrible. And if you look at the ingredients list, it will shock you. You won't know half the stuff that's in there if you're not a scientist. Yeah. And I don't think that's how we win the category. I don't think that's how we nourish people in the future. This is just a cheap way to get on the bandwagon, right? And to us, it's very important to have a brand that distinguishes our products from other players in the market, to say, hey, this is healthy, this is clean, this is natural, this is good for you and your body and the planet. So I think that's where the brand comes in, to give that trust to consumers. But bad products, I think that's pretty much the obstacle to getting a wider range of people into the category.
Yeah. And you do that also by having a great taste. I used your products myself. I love them. Like, I think it's really the best out there. How do you actually develop? Can you talk a bit more about the development process? Because obviously you wanted to have a meat replacement. So how far, how far did you go there to say, hey, we want to make it taste like meat or have a texture like meat, or should it be something completely different? What are the trade-offs and the question that you asked yourself there?
I don't like the term meat replacement. We like to make stuff or products that are better than meat. And what we learned early on is that, like our chicken or our pulled pork in the original or the nature form, without the marinades that are very popular with chefs. In retail, it's a bit tricky because people go for convenience often and they take the pre-marinated product. But the original versions, where you as a chef or as a private person at home go and cook your own meal with it, it's clearly not an animal taste when you bite into it, in the natural form. But you can have that canvas in front of you, like an artist or like a chef, and you do whatever you would have done with the animal counterpart. So in that way, we leave it up to the consumer to decide what to do with it. You can eat it raw, and then it's clearly not meat. Or you can take very traditional recipes and make them better with planted.
Right. Yeah. So you have the whole flexibility there.
I think that's important, because look, we do about half our revenue with food service, with chefs, and about the other half with retail over the whole company. And it is important to give, especially our food service customers, but I think more retail customers, that possibility to do whatever you wish to do to your, say, historical protein choice.
Yeah. Right. Talking about go-to-market, you just mentioned half selling to chefs or to professional cooks, and the other one to retail customers, basically. How did you decide and come up with that go-to-market strategy? Was it always that way from the beginning?
It used to be very much focused on food service, and it's still that way when we enter new markets. We try to find lighthouses or great restaurants, or if it's even like that greatest tasting bar on the block, let's say in Berlin, right? You want partners that celebrate food and that are known to have great food. And then the best case, they take an animal menu off and replace it with planted, so we make direct impact with consumers. And then you need these partners to be successful with the products that you're offering with them. Because our brand is on the menu, right?
Sure.
If you eat it in a restaurant and it doesn't taste great, it's worse than if you eat animal chicken and it doesn't taste great, and you're like, oh, the chef sucks, and I'll try it again next time at a different restaurant. With planted, that needs to be a great application or great menu. So we want our partners to be successful. That's very important. Also because then that you can use these partners, these lighthouses, to shine onto the brand, onto our growth, onto other channels. And when I say we love to start with food service. It obviously wasn't always that easy during COVID to start in food service in Germany. So we did it about the same time as Edeka. We started to work with restaurants in the region. In the meantime, we work with Borchardt, for example, the greatest schnitzel house in Berlin, or Fiegelmüller, the same one in Vienna, right? but also Europa Park uses planted, and or Deutsche Bahn on the board on the bistro. When you travel through Germany by train. And I think it's very much about that mix, about the touching consumers at various places around his daily life, because you're so much in contact with protein choices, you might not realize it, but if you seem like you're interested in nutrition, but other people who might not be that interested, they sometimes don't even realize when they eat animal meat. They're like, oh, I just ate a pizza for lunch. Well, hey, there was a little piggy on top of it, wasn't there?
Exactly.
But yeah, most people don't seem to realize that. And we want to touch people wherever they eat protein.
And your brand seems to be the key factor there to really also build sort of a USP in the market, that people know your brand, besides, of course, your outstanding product. Is that sort of the long-term investment that you're making to say, this is your strategy to not only stay relevant with the product, but to also stay relevant in the future with a strong brand?
I think people trust brands, right? If it's trustworthy, and we very much try to be that brand that people trust, and people trust us to make not only great tasting but very clean products, and not just products that are good for the environment, for the animals, but are overall a great solution for the protein issue. Whether in 5 to 10 years the brand will be on every product that we make, I don't know. Honestly, we want to make impact by creating great tasting proteins. So we scale technology, whether this category always stays branded or whether the category it goes into a more commoditized market. I honestly don't know, but I wouldn't say. Don't know if it matters that much, because if you want to make a difference, you need to get to scale, and one way or another, you're gonna find a way to monetize that.
Because one thing that is really obvious is if you see a planted product, it's often listed as a planted product on the menu, which is not the case for many other alternatives. It's just like a veggie burger or whatever they call it, right? But if they use your protein, it's often branded on the menu. That's quite special.
Obviously, it's important to us that they brand it, but I think by having that strong brand that stands out to competition, to other products out there that are readily available, the restaurant itself can differentiate them from others, around that don't use planted maybe. So, and by having that planted logo on the menu or the name, you celebrate that trust more, right? I feel like that's important, and by making each and every touch point successful. When I talk to you as a new restaurant, I would have tons of examples how we made your neighbor successful by having the name on the menu.
So it's a win-win in the end.
I think you need to create that. Yeah.
And did you actively push for that they put the brand on the menu, or is that something that happened more organically without having a master plan?
No, this is important to us from the beginning. Yeah.
So it was a very conscious decision. Was it easy to convince them early on? Because I imagine, when you're just starting out, many people might be a bit more defensive, say, yeah, you're just a young startup, we don't trust you yet. Was that a challenge in the beginning?
Yeah, there's always discussions. No, but I wouldn't say this is the make or break, honestly. I feel like if you have enough arguments to tell the partner you're going to be more successful if you say it's planted chicken, and honestly, by saying it's planted chicken or planted pulled or planted kebab, it's very clear that this is not meat. So you don't have to go above and beyond, say, vegan, whatever. Yeah. So I think the brand itself creates a lot of value, and if you make that argument good enough, and maybe you need a bit of history for it, then you create win-wins.
How was that with retailers, the other important revenue stream for you? Because there, it's a very competitive game, right, to get shelf space. Also, if you're starting out, you're not that well known yet. You don't have the track record yet. How did you land your first shelf spaces? Was it mainly based on the new product that was just better than anything else out there, or how do you get?
Yeah, I think it was very much the best product, and the reach out came from retail because they tried it or heard about it in food service in that channel or in online shop. We see when a retailer orders to their main office to try our product, right?
Yeah.
You see that in the web shop, and not that they get anything different than everybody else, but it's you know when to expect an email.
Absolutely. And I'm also interested in the business case behind it. How does it compare, in terms of maybe margins or also, the distribution space, logistics, etc.? Is your product also more attractive from a business perspective for retailers and also food services to use than other alternatives? Because maybe they have lower costs getting that from you compared to animal-based protein.
That must be the goal, right? And in Switzerland, we get there. Yeah. In Switzerland, we are cheaper than the local chicken, pulled pork, whatever. Worldwide, it seems it's a bit tougher, obviously. There's a lot of deregulation in the meat market that is not so friendly on the alternative market or the plant-based market.
Especially Germany, for example, I can imagine.
Yeah,
right?
Or the whole European Union has free trade with Brazilian chicken, for example, right?
Right.
So you have that world price. However, that increased 45%, I believe, chicken by the pound this year only due to higher raw material cost and energy cost, and that hits the animal market much stronger than it does us,
of course,
who actually were able to lower COGS this year, thanks to producing at scale and more automated. But there's a few arguments, right? For example, when you cook planted, you're not losing water. And have you ever, I don't know if you ever cooked like, especially I think, let's go for Germany, especially in Germany, meat is known to have a bit more water inside than in other markets, and you lose that as a chef, right? So if you, as a chef, you want to calculate what that menu cost you, put 100 grams of Brazilian chicken inside, you end up with about 80. Wow. And with planted, you end up with the same, or maybe a bit more if you add a little water marinade to it. So that is an argument that really works in sales, right? Because in the end, it counts what you offer the consumer, not what you bought.
Sure.
And if it just evaporates in your pan, then you're lost.
But even there, it's you are very competitive when it comes to the margins and the pricing. You can compete with the other things out there in the market.
Our goal is clearly to be cheaper than a regular animal meat. And soonish. Really depends a bit on how bad, let's say, the raw material crisis will continue.
Sure. And in that regard, you still do your production here in Switzerland, close to Winterthur in Kemptal.
Exactly.
Is that a disadvantage for you in terms of costs, or do the economies of scale outweigh these costs?
I think when we started, a lot of people, or not a lot, but some early advisors or people that were trying to advise were saying, you need to build a production. You go to Poland, you go to Eastern Europe, or Germany, and look at the labor cost here in Switzerland. And I often say, look, when we moved from production from ETH to Kemptal, we produced about 1.5 tons a day to deliver into the channels that we had back then, or the customers that we had. And we were about 40 people in production, including us. Over lunchtime, we would just produce as much as we could. In the meantime, there's a state-of-the-art automated line in Kemptal that everybody can come visit when you want to have lunch or dinner at our restaurant or just a beer. Where we built a glass house around production. That's why I say everybody can come and visit and see how we make that better than meat products. When we started, we were 40 people in production. Now we're still around 40 people in production, producing over 10 tons a day.
Wow!
So you see how the scale helps us, and automation in production helps us to decrease the cost. And it's not just that; it's obviously raw material also. And look, it's our home. We all live in Switzerland. We built this line, these 2 lines here in Kemptal in Switzerland. How would we want to do that and scale it as fast in another market just because of labor cost? I think, and it's super unsustainable to produce somewhere where you don't sell. Like we export now over 50% of the products that we make here in Switzerland goes into our export markets, and our goal must be to produce locally there, right? We just need to build our first production now outside of Switzerland.
So that's probably one of the next steps that will come very soon.
Yeah, we want to use that Series B funding round for upscaling production on the product development, engineering side, to get the processes right, to make the chicken breast, our newest innovation, on scale. Nice. We use some money, obviously, to get more production footprint in markets where we're active, and then also scale our marketing and commercial operations to reach more people.
Nice. And talking about international expansion, how do you actually tackle a new market? How do you launch there with everything that you've learned in Switzerland and the business running well here? How do you go into a new market? What's your strategy there?
I think every market is a little bit different, and we also had to learn that one. We try to go in and find customers that love food as much as we do, that stand with their name for great food. Like I said before, certain restaurants or retail customers even that stand for a bit of a better quality of food, stand for a love of food, that partner with us to launch in that market. And then we have co-working spaces, offices, and all these markets with local people that work with us locally. And we as a team, as a global company, we come together twice a year to get together, work on culture, work on strategy, update on strategy, and then also celebrate a bit.
How do you decide what you do in the local markets and what you keep in Switzerland?
Ongoing discussion. I don't think ever. We try to do the backbone in Switzerland, but as soon as you grow, or let's say that the help for the local markets to be as efficient as possible, whether that's the brand, the first marketing steps, channel expertise, we try to build that globally and then roll out. And at some point, markets are mature enough to do that themselves. Okay. Certainly not the global brand, certainly not values that we adhere as a company, as certain values we obviously want to keep global. But the more you grow into a local market, I think the more you have a chance to localize a bit, maybe some assets.
Yeah. In that regard, from your experience, I'm just curious, is there something that always comes first, like sales, for example, in local markets? Is that something that you sort of have to do locally compared to a global sales channel that you can build from Switzerland? Or is there always this is the first thing that you do when you enter a local market and start to localize things, basically?
You can work with distributors to enter new markets. You can help those distributors out, maybe with a local team. I think there's various strategies. Honestly, when we went to Germany, it was pretty clear that we needed a local team. Austria at first we did through the German organization. We thought actually that we're going to do everything with the German organization in whole Europe. Had to learn the hard way that we need to build more companies than that. So certain ground structures you need in each country, but I think the more you can do globally, or the more help you can give each market globally, the more effective people can also work with customers on the ground.
Right. And I also wonder, you mentioned before you were still going into the production over lunch break and planted yourself. How has your role as a founder shifted over the years now?
I still try to go in production. I think my next shift is in December.
Nice.
Yeah, it's always good to see what Lucas built again, and how our newest chicken and pulled pork, our newest products are made. But the role honestly, it changes quite fast. I wanted to say every 6 months or so, you have to redo basically your job description if you ever had one. Yeah. There's certain things that will need your involvement. Maybe certain customers want that. Maybe certain new partners will want that. Maybe, yeah. But it's you work on with your team to find the best solutions for the company. And yeah, I think sometimes that also can hurt a bit, right? When you're like, I really like to do this, but no, it makes sense for the whole company that we structure this team in a better way, in a more efficient way. We get more automation in that way, and more care of a certain aspect of that business, because you obviously can't do it all, and you're certainly not the best at it. I'm not. So yeah, it's more specialized. It's more maybe at least that's when we're trying to fly at a certain level to coach better. Mm-hmm. Not sure if it's always working in the best way.
You try, right? To do the best job possible.
That I can say.
How does your job description today in November 2022 look like, or your typical day, if there's such a thing?
Good question. I don't think there is a typical day, but it involves too many events right now. I need to cut down that a bit. I would love to involve more customer work, which it does, but I think it could do more.
What would you like to do there specifically?
I think understand their issue and create perfect solutions for our customers in the protein space. Yeah. Because more and more we want to understand the protein issue of our customer, and often it's an animal-based protein that they're having maybe not even an issue with, but they see, oh, this is getting too expensive, or this menu is maybe not the perfect one for a certain group. Like, let's solve that for you. Yeah. And isn't that to me is a fantastic challenge I would love to spend more time on.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at where you stand today, you're close to your 70 million Series B fundraising round. You already mentioned what you want to use the money for. Do you also have any new products planned? You know, maybe an egg alternative one day, for example.
I think we're really good at making fibers, textures. So never say never, but we're focusing on getting great tasting, bigger pieces of meat out there that are fibrous. So the chicken breast that I mentioned before, that is currently available in 2 restaurants, one in Paris, one in Berlin. It's game changing. It's better than any chicken breast you'll ever have from an animal. It's juicy. It has these intertwined fibers that are so typical for chicken, and it's just better for you and the planet. It will make it cheaper too. So I'm
getting hungry and excited.
Yeah, that's fantastic. This product is going to be game changing. So anything that is in bigger pieces, that has maybe more complexity to it, is a challenge for us on the technology side, and this is something that we want to bring to market with great taste.
Right.
Not just call something a steak because it's red and then it has 20 ingredients and is actually a bread.
Right. You also have obviously investors on board, right? So investors at one point in time, they also want to see a return on their investment. What is your strategy there? Do you plan to do an IPO one day to get as big of a company as possible to be a publicly traded company? Or do you want to be, an exit and be acquired by a company one day? What is your strategy there when it comes to the exit?
Not sure. I have a vision. I think we want to build a great not everlasting. We want to build a solution for the protein issue first and foremost. Then we will obviously look at the capital markets to see where we find the money and the best way to keep us on that growth path. Maybe one day that is the public market. Maybe it keeps being private. I'm not sure. Obviously, we are realistic about the business case. We want to build very healthy gross margins on the products because it needs to be sustainable one day economically. I think the times now with the interest rate spikes shows that pretty good also to other companies in the market. So the drive to lower our cost is not just to reach more people, but it's also obviously to to make a healthy march and to sustain that growth, maybe on our own one day.
So also sustainability on a company level when it comes to sustaining your business on your own.
I think otherwise you're not a sustainable business.
Right.
It might be a foundation or something.
Exactly. Pascal, to wrap up the conversation, we have some rapid fire questions for you. So I either give you a short question or different options to choose from, and you have to answer in one sentence.
In one sentence, all right.
You ready?
Yep.
What's your favorite planted product?
It's pulled pork. It's super versatile.
Nice. How many hours of sleep did you get last night?
Bad example, only 4.
I mean, all these events, you said it before, right?
Yeah, it was too much of BOD prep.
What's your plant milk of choice, if any?
There's mostly only Oatly in my fridge.
Nice. How do you relax and recover?
I want to say sports, but it doesn't happen too regular.
What sports?
I like running.
Nice.
There's a nice forest next to my house. Or a good meal together with friends and family. I like that too.
Perfect. And the last one for you today, what meat dish are you most excited to be able to recreate with planted one day?
Depends on the mood, but I think the sausage is gonna be a game changer for reaching like that everyday barbecue moment, stadium moment. It's not too far in the future.
I already see planted dominating the US market.
There's a lot of sausage in Germany and Switzerland too. So
Fair point. Pascal, thank you so much for stopping by. All the best and lots of success, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Sylvan.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.